My girlfriend broke up with me, and I am moving into my own place today. This will be the first time in my 44 years of life that I have lived alone. I am trying to figure out budgets. I am coming from a household with 10 people living here, and I can't wrap my head around shopping for just one person. I know this is kind of like a how long is a piece of string question, but I figured with enough responses I can get a general idea. I am totally lost right now. Story 1. I aim to spend $300 a month, and I can usually keep it closer to $250. I could spend less if necessary, but I have to indulge myself sometimes or I will go insane. Story 2. 300 pounds or so a month, but I do buy a lot of treats and typically do not buy own brand goods. You might find that your first few grocery bills will be higher because you have to create your pantry from scratch, buying a lot of condiments, herbs, spices, and seasonings for the first time. Story 3. I average about $100 in change at the grocery store every week. That's 4 to 5 nights worth of meals plus 7 days worth of breakfasts and lunches. But I shop at the higher price store in my area because it is less crowded and has a better parking lot. My usual weekly meal plan: breakfast meal prep. 6 containers that each have 1 cup of cottage cheese and 1 cup of diced fruit. Except on Friday when I go into my office and get my usual double egg and cheese sandwich on a roll. Lunches. Sandwich fixings. Sunday night meal prep. Make something that I can divide into 5 meals and freeze as needed. Typically, something high in protein with a vegetable. This week, I made shredded chicken thighs with peppers and onions alongside rice and beans. Last week, I made lentil stew with Italian sausage. Snacks. A bag of oranges, a couple of containers of strawberries and raspberries, chips and salsa, shrimp cocktail ring if they are on sale. Drinks. I grab 1 bottle of Gatorade Zero or Powerade Zero to take with me to work on Fridays. Otherwise, I drink filtered water, Crystal Light, or homemade unsweetened iced tea at home. Story 4. It depends, but $400 to $800. More than some families I know. I need to start looking at price tags again. Story 5. 44 years and never lived alone? That is surprising. It depends on where you live and your access to grocery stores or farmers markets. Focus on what you actually like to eat. If you do not know how to cook, this is the best time to learn. Start simple by watching cooking videos. Enjoy the process. Living alone in today's world is not something everyone can afford. It has its pros and cons, so try to enjoy spending time alone. Story 6. Honestly, it depends on how much you cook, what you cook, and how much you eat. There are too many factors to reliably answer you. Edit. Honestly, your biggest issue is going to be cooking for one. No meals, except microwave ones, are designed for a single person. Most recipes are not either. Story 7. 4 to 500, but I am very into training and need to buy a lot of proteins, which is the most important macronutrient. I also just have to buy more food in general. When I was broke, I got it down to 100, maybe less. I lived off 47-cent ramen packets and Kraft dinner. Story 8. $100 to cook 4 meals per week and have some items for the weekend as well. Each meal is eaten for dinner, and then I have leftovers for lunch. Story 9. I probably spend between $200 and $300 per month on groceries and dining out. I am sure I could reduce that budget if I wanted, but I enjoy my food. Story 10. I was in your position when I got divorced. It was the first time living alone, and I was used to shopping and cooking for a family. It was tricky to get it right when shopping and cooking for one, and I had to adjust through trial and error. You will likely need to do the same, so do not beat yourself up if you go over budget or buy too much food and have to toss some. It is going to happen. Anyway, I suggest $60 to $80 is probably a good place to start. Story 11. The answer depends on how well you can cook and the food prices in your area. For me, it has been about $250 every 2 weeks or so. Story 12. I pay $150 a week. However, I do not live off instant noodles. I cook for myself and do not make simple meals all the time. Story 13. I was single from 35 to 40 and ate like a teenager. I started off at 20 pounds a week, living off frozen pizzas and chips with the occasional takeaway. After a while, I began actually cooking and making extra for lunch at work. My weekly spending probably never got much higher than 50 pounds, including wine and whiskey. Seems daunting now, but you will work it out. Story 14. Original poster, you got this. This is a new chapter, an adventure for you, one that, by the sounds of it, will be cheaper food-wise anyway. Perhaps take a week or two to experiment and find out what you use and how much. Then you can settle on a budget and routine. Good luck. Story 15. I am in my mid-40s and live with my partner, but we usually prepare our food separately. I spend around $40 per week on groceries. I eat as much and exactly what I want, but it is inexpensive because I make everything from scratch, such as making my own tofu, and consume very little meat. Story 16. If you want to go as cheap as it gets, rice, beans, and some sort of meat, you can live on like $20 a week if you are strong enough to take the monotony. Story 17. The cost of living highly depends on how healthily you eat and where you live. I try to eat healthy and live in a place with a higher cost of groceries, so I am averaging about $450 a month. This includes items like toilet paper, shampoo, and other essentials, not just food. Story 18. I recently moved back in with my parents, but when I was living alone, my expenses averaged around $400. That is a bit on the upper end for a single person, but I eat a lot of ground turkey, and it adds up. Plus, protein powder is expensive. Story 19. I go to Aldi about once a month and spend $100 to $120 on various meats and frozen foods. Sometimes I stop at ShopRite on the way home and buy a steak if the weather is nice for grilling. On average, I would say $70 to $80 is my weekly spending. Story 20. Probably around $400 per month, and that is in Canadian dollars. I could reduce it if I really wanted to. On weekends, I often get prepared lunches that cost $5 to $10 each, whereas home cooking comes to about $10 per day for all 3 meals. Story 21. I have trouble spending less than $200 per trip. Meat, cheese, dairy, eggs, fruit, vegetables, granola. Story 22. I spend about 600 Canadian dollars per month on groceries and 300 Canadian dollars on eating out. I cook most meals at home and usually prepare meals for the week in advance. I am not on a strict budget. However, if I want to eat something, I am happy to spend a bit on it. Story 23. I don't eat out much. Enjoy meat, usually chicken and lamb, compete as an endurance athlete, and live in a very high cost of living area. So grocery costs are challenging. My budget goal is $450 per month. But in the past few months, it has been closer to $500 to $550 due to inflation. It's a lot of money, but I've already cut down on expensive junk and buy in bulk when I can. A healthy diet with nutritious food is important to me, so I'm not willing to cut further. As a single man, one tip is that the 25 to 50-pound rice bag is key to happiness. It provides endless food for pennies, and you can cook it 1,000 different ways to get variety. Story 24. If you do not shop in bulk, you will spend around $250 to $350 a month. If you shop in bulk, it will go down to about $100 to $150. I used to primarily shop at Sam's Club and Costco. It will take an initial purchase of about $1,000 to $1,500, but you will not need to spend much on small trips to the store, basically milk, eggs, and cheese. Story 25. I only eat once a day at my work cafeteria. I always get the deal of the day for $6 to $8. At home, I just buy basic items like water, milk, coffee, 1 or 2 juices, bread, ham, and cheese. I barely spend $100. Story 26. I eat a lot and have very protein-heavy meals for my workout regimen. Even with many more pounds of chicken, cartons of eggs, and gallons of milk, I am averaging $450 per month. Giving up the meal plan and using a penny saver method, I have gotten by with $175. Story 27. Around $460. Disclaimer. I live in a developing country, and I buy a lot of imported cheese, ham, and similar items that are not produced locally. I also host many house parties, which include alcohol and snacks. This is, at minimum, a worst-case scenario. I have also managed to live on $300 by reducing imported items. Story 28. Well, I spend about $170 a week, but it is me and my wife. I definitely eat the majority of it, so probably $100 to $110 a week for me. Story 29. about 200 every 2 weeks. I could easily reduce that by 50 if I wanted to, but I like ice cream and candy every now and then. Story 30. Around $400, but I have a food allergy that prevents me from buying some common, affordable ingredients. Still, if I were you, I would budget for higher than normal grocery costs for a couple of months while you build up a buffer of non-perishable items. Story 31. $500 to $600 at least. Part of that is because I have a small apartment fridge and minimal space for storage, so I cannot really buy that much in bulk aside from rice and quinoa. Story 32. Grocery prices where I live are pretty ridiculous, but that is a different topic for a different discussion. In my case, I get most of my groceries through Costco and get the other items from Walmart. $413.06 in the last 30 days. I am certainly not buying steak and eggs. Big bags of frozen Kirkland chicken breast and vegetables, oatmeal packets, apple juice, canned soda, milk, rice, and other staples. Story 33. Approximately 400 pounds a month for 12 meals a week. I do not care about cooking, so I use Thrive. They cook and deliver my meals, and the calories are counted, including the macronutrients. I am very focused on fitness, which is why I have chosen this option. Breakfast costs approximately 65 pounds a month, 40 pounds for the overnight oats, to which I add a bit of honey, vanilla extract, and almond milk, and around 20 pounds for 1 month of protein bars. In addition, I get 1 bottle of Long Life milk by Cravendale every week, and occasionally a chocolate bar. Story 34. I live in Vancouver where the cost of living, especially groceries, is very high. It usually costs at least $100 a week. Story 35. Over in the United Kingdom, for a healthy, fresh diet, you are talking roughly 250 to 350 pounds per month. But if you go to local markets and build good relationships with the vendors, they usually give you a lot of freebies or stock they are going to throw out. I would always get extra meat and vegetables just by having a good relationship with them. I like to stay loyal to certain people for certain things. If you are going processed and aiming for the cheapest options, you could probably lower it to 150 to 250 pounds. Here, we also have discount shops. Essentially, they sell stock that is still perfectly fine but past or just on its use-by date. For example, a jar of sauce may cost 4 to 5 pounds in supermarkets, but only 1 pound in these shops. Also, batch cooking will lower your cost significantly. Bulk buying helps with that as well. Story 36. I moved out last year. At 40 years old, it was my first time living alone. The first few months were terrible. Depression and anxiety lingered, but then it felt like a reset button was pushed. You're forced to figure it out. You know how to do it. It's just that someone else did it for you. I did my budgets my way, the way I could understand. I spent a lot of money setting myself up. I bought a new 75-inch television on my very first credit card. I bought a second-hand dining table and lounge suite. I was chatting with a friend who was going through a separation as well. I offered him a room at my place. We've been flatmates for 7 months now. He's going to move out before Christmas so he can have his own place, and his kids can visit and stay more often. Both our kids are like cousins, but it can get crazy having 5 kids here at once. Mine come around and stay every second weekend, but I pick them up daily from school. It's not a bachelor pad. I had a new partner before I moved out. My ex and I are amicable. It just didn't work out after 18 years. Now she realizes what she had in me, but it's too late. Yes, it's hard. But you're 44. Get up, dust yourself off and keep going. You still have 10, 20, 30, 40 years to live. You're barely halfway there. You can do it. Story 37. Really depends on your eating habits. I only eat lunch and dinner to help maintain a healthy weight. It depends on your choice of foods. A package of hot dogs, 8 slices of cheese, and bread could supply 4 meals or 2 days of food for less than $10. But if you eat steak, it will be more expensive. It depends on where you live. Food in New York City is several times more expensive than in rural Kentucky. It depends on how much you eat at restaurants. I have not eaten outside of my house in over 3 years. Lastly, it depends on how much you waste and throw away. When I cook a crock pot full of chili, soup, chicken Alfredo, and so on, I freeze half of it to eat later because my crock pot is large and cooks 10 to 12 servings. I eat it all and do not throw any food out. With the way I eat and prepare meals and not eating out, I spend $50 to $60 a week. Story 38. Your first few months will be more expensive because you need to get the items that you use a little bit of occasionally but last a reasonably long time, such as spices, condiments, and sauces. For just my wife and me, we are down to approximately $100 to $150 per week, including ordering or making pizza once a week. Story 39. Probably $75 to $100. I have a Costco membership so I can get good value on meat. Burgers and grilled chicken are staples at my house. I buy in bulk and freeze the rest. When I make pasta sauce, which is typically Rao's Jared marinara, meat, and some added spices to taste, I make a bunch and freeze the rest. That way, I can just place a container of sauce in the refrigerator the night before and let it thaw. Then I cook a little pasta. It is a pretty cheap meal. If I grill chicken, I grill two. I eat one and shred the second. The next night, I make a grilled chicken Caesar salad. I like plain cheese frozen pizzas, so I keep a bunch in my deep freezer for nights when I don't feel like cooking. Rice is cheap and easy to cook. I use a slow cooker on the weekends sometimes, so that provides more food to freeze for easy midweek dinners. Honestly, slow cooking is a great method. You should find a good recipe book or content creator who makes the kind of food you want and follow their recipes. Story 40. Between $300 and $400 a month. That includes anything you get at the store, like paper towels, department items, or whatever I get at the store. Most of it is food, though. Story 41. $80 a week, but I usually come in under budget. My advice is don't approach it from a budgeting perspective. Approach it from a meal planning perspective. Since you said in a comment you are vegan and plan to cook, plan out 12 meals based on your tastes and preferences. 1 breakfast, 1 lunch, and 1 dinner per week. Then price out what it takes to cook all your meals for that week. I'm able to stay on or under budget since I'm only cooking for myself. I don't mind eating the same thing every day, so I batch cook all my meals for the week. However, if you want more variety, your costs will increase. Some general tips. Learn to plan meals in which leftover ingredients can be used in other meals. If I buy an onion for a meal this week, I'll make sure it's big enough for leftovers to be used in my meal prep next week. Fresh spices are a large initial investment but last for months at a time, so it balances out. Check prices at various stores in your area, as it might mean you buy certain items from specific stores because of the price. If you are in the United States and one is near you, consider a membership to Costco or Sam's Club. I'm able to buy certain items in bulk that are cheaper relative to the larger quantity and last longer because I'm just one person. For example, I buy avocado oil spray for my air fryer, and a 4.7 ounce can cost around $6 at my local grocery store. At Costco, I bought a 2-pack, 13.5 ounces each, for around $20. While it hits harder on your wallet up front, it's far cheaper in the long run because of the quantity relative to the price. Story 42. Chicken drumsticks to eat and then make chicken broth with the leftovers. Milk, bread, cheese, pasta, 2 sauces, and soda, whichever is on sale. Stock coffee and some mixed vegetables. Maybe if I feel like splurging, I'll get some Oreos or Vienna fingers. $60 to $90 a week. Story 43. I was paying around $400 to $500 a month before I moved in with my girlfriend a year ago. Unrelated to your question, I am sure you are going through a lot right now, but enjoy the peace of living alone. It will be an adjustment for you, but there is nothing like having a space that is entirely your own. Story 44. Depends on goals. Right now, I am on a high protein cut, so it has been a lot of lean, healthy meat. Costco chicken breast near me is $3.20 a pound, and I buy 30 pounds, so let's call that $100. Eggs and egg whites, rice. I have a Tiger rice cooker. I definitely did not like spending the money, but I have probably saved much more with the amount of rice I actually eat now. So right now, it is probably $50 to $70 a week with vegetables and everything. Story 45. Amazon Fresh is your best friend. It is nearly 50% off compared to my grocery store for the same products and produce, which is mind-blowing. I am able to keep it within $400 a month. This also considers that I live in a high cost of living state or city. Story 46. about $150 per month at the wholesale store for bulk items and maybe $50 every other week for produce and meat. Story 47. Look into Country Kitchen's 30-minute dinner meals. You might need to search for it as it is an old-school book that you can obtain. My girlfriend's mother gave us hers, and we save a lot of money. Imagine how much more you would save if you were single. Story 48. Probably $125 per week, usually. I have one big week where I make Brunswick stew $75 for 3 gallons, which is usually $150 to $200. Then 3 smaller weeks where I make a week's meal prep at a time, around $75 per week. Story 49. Go to your local dollar store. Get your spices. Salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, parsley, chives, paprika, chili seasoning. Then get your barbecue sauce, ketchup, mustard, brown rice, beans, lentils, spaghetti sauce, and Alfredo sauce. Make a big pot of chili and add all the vegetables you can: corn, carrots, onion. You can eat it over brown rice to stretch it out. Freeze some. You can freeze the rice or pasta as well. Story 50. Something like $325 per month. I live in Colorado, and our groceries are probably 20% more expensive than in Kansas and Nebraska. Story 51. Around Australian $200 per fortnight. This could be less if I stock up on frozen and long-life items, or could be more if I am attending social events. Story 52. I give myself $300 a month for spending on groceries and gas combined. It is pretty bare bones, but my savings are through the roof. Story 53. 46 years old, single. Spend $21 to $30 a week. Milk, cereal, chicken, ramen, bag of potatoes, onions, lettuce or cabbage, noodles, spaghetti are my basics. Story 54. The cost varies a lot depending on what I cook each week. If I buy a package of steaks at Costco, those alone could be $70. Other weeks, I can live off a $5 rotisserie chicken. I like to cook and do not pay too much attention to what I spend. I just plan well and do not waste a lot. Story 55. 75 to 300 per week. Variables depend on if I want to splurge on items. The amount is increasing because I am eating more fresh fruit, which is very expensive. Story 56. I spend at least $200 a month on groceries, but that is because I buy a lot of fast food from Monday to Friday. Story 57. Do Whole Foods cooking, make it all from scratch, and if you find it too time-consuming or boring, just stream your favorite shows or podcasts while doing it. It really takes the chore out of chores. Story 58. About 12 weeks ago, we signed up for a meal service. We had tried a few before, including HelloFresh, Factor, and HungryRoot, but none of them worked well for us. HelloFresh was frustrating because I live in a hot climate, and the ingredients often arrived wilted or of poor quality after ordering for a while. Cook Unity is the new service we have tried. We did dinner for 6 nights a week, allowing 1 night out. The food is amazing, with excellent flavors and quality ingredients. They print the macronutrients right on the package. I have lost weight, my sugar cravings have decreased, I eat fewer carbohydrates, and I am significantly less bloated. The taste and quality are high, and the variety is impressive. The recipes are primarily from Food Network chefs. Meals are delivered once a week and are not frozen. Every recipe so far has required just 350 degrees in the oven for 13 to 16 minutes with no prep. The 6 meals cost roughly $80 per week. There are premium options, so the price may vary. I highly recommend them. I am not affiliated with the company. The food is just very good, and I cannot stop talking about it. There is a referral code I can provide if you are interested, which reduces the first order to about $65. The biggest benefit for us was that it removed all the thinking from meal planning. We do not have to worry about what to get for specific meals. There is no waste of leftover ingredients we did not use, and it expanded our palates with different styles of food. Story 59. When I lived alone, I spent between 400 and 800 euros. My paycheck was around 1,000 euros, but I paid no rent and had almost no utilities. That was in 2019, when bread did not cost a full euro, Now the cheapest is 1.45. I really did not even look at food prices. I worked hard but ate well. Today, that quality and choice of food would cost me at least 1,000 euros, likely more. Story 60. Approximately $175 per month when I am cutting weight, and $300 to $400 during normal months with bulk purchases at Costco included. Story 61. I grew up in the slum and lived alone nearly my entire life until recently. My budget-friendly and efficient weekly meals are as follows. Sam's Club rotisserie chicken $5. The meat is enough to feed me 2 days. I eat it 2 to 3 times a week. Leftover bones immediately go into a soup pot. Bag of 10-pound potatoes. Any type of potato that is on sale usually costs me $2 to $3. It lasts me a whole week and a half. Frozen broccoli bags from anywhere, $1 each. I eat it 7 days a week. $50 bag of rice, 50 pounds. Lasts me an entire year. In total, I spend about $20 to $30 a week on food that I never get tired of. I am still eating rotisserie chicken from Sam's Club as I type this. Money spent varies depending on whether my seasonings run out. This budget leaves me with plenty of money for other things and occasional splurging, like going out with friends where I might spend over $100 on a meal or just a bottle of wine. Story 62. I do not keep readily available food in the house. I go get what I want to eat every day. It really helps me stay on budget and prevents unwanted late-night snacking, which has always been a problem for me. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.